The day after the Champions League, night before, and if day one of the round of 16 is anything to go by, day two should be at the very least interesting. A familiar story in Paris as Bayern Munich went there, eked out a 1-0 win over Paris Saint-Germain. Kingsley Coman the scorer, and then of course in the second game AC Milan getting the better of Tottenham by a 1-0. And so there are several matches on the way today. Just to remind you of the other round of 16 matchups. Club Brugge versus Benfica, Borussia Dortmund against Chelsea today. And of course next week we will see Liverpool against Real Madrid, a repeat of last year's final. Eintracht Frankfurt versus Napoli, RB Leipzig versus Manchester City, and Inter Milan. They will be battling Porto, rounding up the first leg fixtures. And welcome to our coverage here on the Home of Champions. My name is Donald Oliver, and we're looking forward to a really good afternoon worth of action. Just to introduce you to our guests in studio, of course, is Eric Rademacher. Of course, he's the technical director at the Kingston Football Academy and assistant coach at Arnett Gardens. And we have two guests online, and you should be pretty used to them as well. One, Brent Sancho, who is the former Trinidad and Tobago defender, and of course Juan Arango, or resident South American correspondent. Gentlemen, first day of action down and dusted. What are your thoughts, Eric, as to what took place on the opening day?
I don't want to say I'm surprised that Bayern got a win out of that first day, but it was good to see the action again and see the big names. You know, we see Messi and Mbappe in a World Cup final, and we see them back in this competition. So it's an exciting start, and as you say, we have many more exciting matches to come, not just today, but next week as well.
Brent, what are your thoughts on the opening day?
On Valentine's Day, one thing was noted: money can't buy you love, and that's the song that PSG is probably going to play in the bus all the way back to the hotel. Despite the big spending, French club, of course, trying to get themselves to a Champions League. One thing they would have recognized after that Bayern leg is that if their star players don't play on both sides of the ball, they will be home very shortly and watching the Champions League on television.
Juan, what are your thoughts?
Well, there's another song that you can also use in terms of PSG, Love Hurts, because now the prospects of where PSG could be come 2022, 23, 24 ends up being up in the air, because now there's speculation that Leo Messi might not renew, and he might start talking about what was the exact term that they used? Life choices in terms of being able to go elsewhere. And many of those life choices might end up meaning him leaving Europe, as far as maybe going to the United States, or maybe going back to Rosario to play with Neil's old boys. We'll see.
Yeah, let's see. Lots to look forward to this afternoon, gentlemen. First up on the agenda, though, Club Brugge against Benfica. Club Brugge are in the round of 16 for the first time, but the coach who brought them there has been let go. Carl Hofkens has been replaced by Scott Park. And Eric, we were talking off air, and we were mentioning the ambitions of one Club Brugge to have switched coaches like that. We understand that they were having a bit of poor form. They're fourth in the Belgian league, and they were struggling to get a groove. But were you surprised by the change that they made?
As you say, we're discussing it. Football is a sport where these changes can happen really fast, and maybe with the performances in the first half of the season, the expectations were so high that when he now gets a good amount of draws in a row, and as you say, it kind of drops in the league to the fourth spot. Right away they switch out the coach, but it's the same squad that Hoefkens had, and for me, especially working a lot with development, I love to see a coach get a little more time, especially when he brings a club to a place where they have never been in their entire history.
Brent, talk to me about that in particular, because I'm wondering if you expect to see a similar Club Brugge team in terms of the style of play that really lit up the Champions League in the first round. Are you expecting something like that this afternoon?
No, and it's simply because Scott Parker is a different manager and has a different approach. He's a bit more pragmatic in his approach. Likes to build out to the back, I think on the Hofskins they would do a lot more in-your-face, up-tempo type of football. So I think they'll play a little bit. They'll be very stingy defensively as well. That's a trademark of Scott Parker team. We saw it when he was with Fulham. Although, of course, they did ship in some goals. But despite that, I think the way they're going to set up is a little bit similar, but I think the approach would be a little bit different. So I do expect a different approach. Look, they need to win at home, that's for sure. It's against a red-hot Benfica team. And as we know, Club Brugge does not travel well. They've really struggled in the road. So I think they need to start well and do well in today's game if they have any chance in this tie.
Yeah, we're going to hear from Scott Parker now because, of course, he's eager to take part in the Champions League now as a coach, having done so as a player. Let's hear from him.
Yeah, I mean, the last time I was in the Champions League was as a player. So yeah, excited, looking forward to this opportunity with the team, along with the players. Obviously a fantastic opportunity for everyone at the football club. The team have done incredible to get to this point, really. So big opportunity for us. One, to go and enjoy this occasion, enjoy this opportunity, and then also obviously try and leave our mark on the competition as well, really.
One, Club Brugge, they were the surprise package in the group phase. They eliminated Atletico Madrid and Bayer Leverkusen, and they finished second behind FC Porto. Now, of course, they have been in some terrible form in their domestic competition. But is Champions League momentum a little different from league momentum, or is that a myth?
You know what? It depends, because it depends on the team. It depends on the circumstances. Now, when you're talking about one of the bigger clubs in this competition, or Real Madrid or Liverpool, they can say, well, you know, we're just going to bypass the league and focus on Champions League. But for Club Brugge and many of those other smaller clubs from smaller or big clubs in smaller leagues, I should say, this is the way that they're measured in terms of their success, especially now with the success that Club Brugge has been able to obtain throughout this year. So it's kind of weird. It's a weird situation, because knowing that what they were able to do to get to the Champions League, yet they have to kind of revamp things with a new coach, with a new system, basically. It's quite the anomaly, if you will, when it comes to teams in these very unique situations.
Eric, Scott Parker, I think he's just registered just the one win in the 7 games that he's in charge, but the majority of the matches have actually ended in drawn results. Do you expect a baptism of fire for him in the Champions League this afternoon?
I mean, I'm actually quite excited for this match. Not necessarily because of Club Brugge, but more because of Benfica. So I expect a very tough matchup, and as you say, like what their current form right now, and even the momentum going into this match versus Benfica momentum, is going to be a very difficult challenge, and I don't expect them to be on top at the end of the 90 minutes.
Yeah, well, Benfica actually won a tough group, which included the likes of PSG and Juventus. They have been going through a transition. Of course, they would have lost 11 players, and they would have brought in 12. But one of the players that they would have lost is Enzo Fernandez going to Chelsea. With that kind of transition that you noted, how do you think that's going to affect the team?
I mean, I think in general, Benfica at the start of the season, they had a new coach come in with Roger Schmidt, actually at PSV, and did not really do too well at PSV, and came in and really made Benfica play beautiful football. And as you see, 11 players left.
11.
But after the break, after the World Cup, when they started back, there were similar questions. How is this going to look? And you lose your engine, you lose Enzo out there, and they have looked like they don't miss a beat. So they have picked it up very good. I think the coach has done a very good job in fitting in these new players to kind of get that same train going. And they still have quality players, young players as well. We see Gonzalo at the World Cup with Portugal getting some shine. So it's a great team to watch right now.
Brent, where Chelsea have failed in transitioning a number of players that have come into the squad, Benfica, they've pretty much continued where they left off. How do you think they've managed to do that?
They're a remarkably run football club, that's for sure. They've been able to, of course, invest in their youth programs. They do a tremendous job at the academy level. And they just seem to keep producing players. It's an astonishing figure as it relates to transfer market sales that they would have made throughout their tenure. And they continue to do so. I mean, they've just sold a player for 100 million quid. That's a very good business for them. And they continue to plug on. They've not really lost the trajectory that they've been on, despite the amount of players that have gone out the door. And that speaks a lot to the structures of the club. It speaks a lot to the philosophy of the club. And it speaks a lot to the management of the club. So kudos to them. They've done well and they've continued to do well. And I expect them, as Eric said, I expect them to come out on top tonight.
One, they keep churning out quality players, so they can actually survive an exodus and get in players into the first team, and they go through seamlessly. The Portuguese midfielder, João Mario, has scored 4 times in the Champions League campaign so far this season. What are you expecting from him?
Look, with João Mario, you have to continue expecting the same out of him because, like you said, there's been a lot of players that have left, but the ones that have remained are basically the nucleus of the team. Gonçalo Ramos, Rafa Silva, João Mario. You look at many of a lot of these players, and it ends up being basically the more things change, the more they stay the same because of how they're able to come in and adapt and how the players there are able to help them adapt in the process.
Eric, you mentioned Gonçalo Ramos, who made a name for himself during the just concluded World Cup in Qatar, where he became the first player to score a hat-trick in a knockout stage game since 1990. Of course, it was made bigger because he put Cristiano Ronaldo on the bench. So talk to me about your expectations of the 21-year-old.
Yeah, I think he's starting, coming back again. I think he was out for a little bit with a light injury, which sometimes can be difficult to catch back that form when there's those expectations. He's not no youngster anymore where per se, well, he has freedom, nothing to lose. You know, there's expectations now. But it's a nice player. It's a finisher. He has movement. So, you know, I think he is a perfect player for the system that Benfica plays. And yeah, I expect him to be involved in the game a lot today.
Brent, there's a lot of hype about Ramos. He was linked to quite a few clubs in the aftermath of the World Cup. What are your thoughts on him as a young striker?
I think he's very good. His movement is good. He has a good eye for goal, obviously, with the goals that he scored in the World Cup. He can play on a half turn. He has a good eye for goal, as I said. An exciting prospect as well. He put the great man Ronaldo on the bench throughout, and for a coach to make a decision, clearly there's a lot about him. And I expect him to use this Champions League to further advertise himself. He's certainly one of the hot prospects in Europe.
Gentlemen, it's time for predictions. I don't expect to see anyone on the fence. Brent Sancho. Start with Juan. What are your thoughts on this? Who do you think will come out on top?
I see Gonçalo Ramos having a great game. I also, and the player that we didn't mention was Alex Grimaldo. I think he'll have a great afternoon over at left back, and you'll see a lot of things opening up down that sector. 2-0.
Brent?
Well, speaking of defense, I was right with the AC Milan score, but no one. I don't want to mention that. But I'll go with a 1-0 Benfica.
Yeah, I think if Mignolet is not having another amazing game, which we saw in the group phase once or twice, it's going to be difficult. So I say 2-0 as well to Benfica.
Oh, Benfica all the way. All right, when we return, we speak about our feature match on SportsMax 2, Borussia Dortmund against Chelsea. Stay with us.